Hello. Today's episode number 94 of the Professor Slots podcast discusses choosing candidate slot machines. Plus, in this episode, I'll be covering the current state of slot machine casino gambling in the great U.S. state of North Dakota. Thank you for joining me for the Professor Slots podcast show. I'm John Friedel, and this is the podcast about slot machine casino gambling. It is where I provide knowledge, insights, and tools for helping you improve your slot machine gambling performance. In case you missed it, on my last episode, I went over assessing casinos for success from my weekly live stream Q&A session on YouTube. Further, I reviewed North Carolina slot machine casino gambling in 2020. I hope you enjoyed listening to my last episode as much as I enjoyed making it for you. Remember to visit professorslots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Here's the audio recording of my latest live Q&A session.
Hello, slots enthusiasts. How are you? It's great to hang out with you for another Professor Slots podcast episode and live stream. Today, we're going to be diving into how to choose candidate slot machines. The next step after last week's live stream, the next step after last week's live stream on choosing and assessing casinos is to choose the best slot machines for you. But how do we do that? With central servers and modern casino business practices, not all slot machines are the same. This can be a tough concept for people, but it used to be tougher. Many slots players dive right in without a plan. On today's live stream, I'll help you start on developing that plan. That's coming up. But first, if you're here with us during the live stream, make sure to say hello in the live chat and let us know who you are and where you play slots. I'll check in with the live stream in a few moments. And as usual, be sure to ask your slots related questions, hopefully on today's topic about choosing slot machines. I'm trying to better develop some of the sections of this hour that we have together. And one of the things I want to include right about now, I might move it to another spot later, depending how things go. I can sort of see statistics on where people drop out. But I wanted to introduce myself. I'll always be doing that. And then I might have a few brief announcements. And there's an important one for today that you need to know about. At least one of them is very important. So, hi, my name is John Friedel. Welcome to Professor Slots, a channel that's all about mastering casino slots so you can win your way to success. If you've ever walked into a casino, looked around, and wondered what's going on with slots, I can help. Thanks again for joining us today, whether you are listening on the podcast, watching this video later, or here with us on the live stream. I'm glad that you're all here. Today is Saturday, June 6th. 2020. I always say 2020 for some reason. And about an hour ago, according to the American Gaming Association's live casino tracker, 519 U.S. casinos have reopened and 470 remain closed. That's right. Another 292 casinos opened in the last week. We were up to 6.5%, almost 7% last Saturday, to just over half, 52%, of U.S. casinos having reopened. Visit AGA's live casino tracker using this convenient link, professorslots.com/tracker. Also, I have a brief announcement about this live stream. Based on comments from Saturdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, perhaps not being the most convenient time, I ran a poll asking when would be a better day or time, and gave some choices, which also work with my schedule. The poll answers were to have the same, what we're doing now, but also 7 to 8 p.m. on Mondays through Friday. The clear results I got back is that people want to stay on Saturdays. In fact, the combined results for every other choice, every weekday evening, equaled those for Saturday alone. So Saturdays it is. However, I hadn't even asked this question. I got a lot of replies that it would be a little more convenient for everybody to hold it a little earlier in the day on Saturdays. A better time seems to be noon Eastern time rather than 2 p.m. For example, California can watch it live at 9 a.m., while London can watch it starting at 7 p.m. instead of 2 hours later for both of those places. One of the interesting things about having this business and having a live stream and doing some of the things that are live is that I'm covering the world. A lot of it's taking place in the United States, and even that's got like 3 to 4 hour time difference. Not even talking about Hawaii or Alaska, my fans there. So I think that we need to move it 2 hours beforehand. I don't think, and I also don't think this is going to affect anybody. The people who are listening on the podcast will still receive the podcast at roughly 7 p.m. Sunday evenings and Eastern time. And it still will take YouTube, because of all the stuff that's going on. Hopefully it'll do a little better at some point. But it also doesn't really matter. It takes about 12 hours for YouTube to process the live stream video and spread it over the globe. If you're closer, then it'll be available to you sooner. But everybody finally, the last person gets it, particularly people in England, about 12 hours later. So, that was 4 a.m., 3 a.m. Eastern time, 12 hours after we finished the live stream. And so, it doesn't really matter if it's 1 a.m., so I don't think anybody's going to be affected. The people who are going to be affected are those here on the live stream now. So let me know in the live chat if this is a problem. I hope it is not. I think we'll have more people coming in if we hold it 2 hours earlier after everybody adjusts to it. So I'm going to check in with the live stream to say hello and maybe answer a few quick questions before we get started further on today's topic about choosing candidate slot machines. Oh my, look at all those comments. I wish there was a timestamp on some of this, because I think the first half hour is before we even started. So Chip is here first. He has chamomile tea and a bagel, which reminds me of a Facebook post that I've been seeing out there a lot. There's a little Yoda bagel, and then there's an Anakin bagel. Maybe you've seen it. I won't give away the surprise. Chip always asks a very detailed question right there at the beginning of the beginning of the chat. So I sometimes miss it because I'm saying hello, but I will make an effort to answer it now. His question: why do slots have more pay action with fewer bets, but as you move up to max, the slot can seem like it's not responding much? Since I usually max bet, it affects the assessment. It doesn't. People, it's a myth. It's a myth that people feel that it's strong. The myth is usually stated, it's a similar myth to believing that high limit, larger denominations pay more, but they just pay bigger, but you're spending more. So the ratio is the same usually. And I did a study of slot machine denominations and to see what the odds were. And there's like 5 states that do that. So I checked all 5 and I wrote that into one of my reports. Which one was it? Oh yeah. Payout return statistics, and was it benefits, top 7 benefits, something like that. But you're asking about numbers of credits bet, and there's some slot machines that every credit bet, is just very few of them, every credit bet is a different game. Okay. And if you play a different bet, then you're playing a different game theme, and it's very hard technically to make those the same odds. So those would have different odds depending how much you play, how much credits you play. But if you don't play that particular machine, there's very few of them, then you have to be aware of bonus rounds and what kind of bonus rounds, if it has bonus rounds, because that also becomes technically difficult. But you're not asking about that. You're saying 1 credit, 2 credit, 3 credit on a 4 credit machine. And 1 might be more often, 2 might be less often, 3 might be a lot less often. And not even worrying about 4 credits, which might have the opportunity to have a bonus round. They should be the same odds. A lot of the testing that slot machines have to go through in almost every state, make sure those odds are identical if it's not a different game for each credit. So it shouldn't be any different. Now, I can't do what I did for denomination amounts where I go check the data. No state provides, well, did you bet 1 credit or 2 credit or 3 credit, and they don't provide return statistics. But the law says it should be the same unless there's something like this different game per credit situation happening. That's why the bonus round, if it's caused by the max bet, that might have a different odds, but all the others should be identical. It's actually hard to make them different. So we're going to have to do something about asking this question later. Let's get back to having a little bit of momentum here and saying hello. Lois and Dave stay in their deck. You want to do mine? Do you want to do mine, please? I got a front porch, a back porch, and a deck. And there's a discussion of, are we getting segmented into those who like tea and those who like coffee? I wonder, is Larry here? Does Larry have an opinion about this? Larry's in the UK. I don't want to make a judgment here. And I also wanted to mention, there's a lot of things going on in the world today, and a lot of very disturbing things. I'm not going to make anything other than something that might affect. It's hard to say make these statements. I'm going to avoid talking about those things, but I want you to know it's very disturbing to me. So moving on. Okay. Lois and Dave says, no casino activity near yet. Got an email suggestions of what to expect. Lois and Dave are in Ontario, Canada. So that's their situation there. Chip says he's in Ohio. Yes, Chip was mentioning this to me earlier. Casinos in the great state of Ohio, where I live, open June 19th. It's another 2 weeks, 2 weeks yesterday. So we shall see how that goes. I find out if I will be laid off 2 days before that. We're losing 1 in 3. And I hope not to be one. Don't think I will be, but let's wait till that's over, and then I'll see if I have money to go to a casino. No worries. Let's see, Lois and Dave, hoping to visit friends in Michigan. Yep. In a month, let me know. Let me know when you'll be there, and I'll see what I can do with my schedule, etc. Denise is here. She lives in Texas and plays in Oklahoma. And we have Leslie from Oregon. That's her handle. She says hi from Oregon. Slopman Jack and is saying hello to Lois. Dave and so David and Lois are talking about Kingston. And Slopman Jack, I'll call you Jack, thinks Ontario casinos will open hopefully by July. Let's see. David and Lois are a family friend, and they usually send me emails and photos and all that. So I'm hopeful for them, but they have a family thing in Michigan, so they'll see a casino before that, possibly. All right, Chip. Jeff has an interesting way of putting things. He's saying hello to Denise and says, wow, Oklahoma is like open casino heaven right now. You must be having a blast. He's got a way with words. Scott's here. He says hello from steamy Ozark, Missouri. Yes, I know what you mean. I don't like running the air conditioning. I'm in Ohio, and I don't like running the air conditioning during the show or the fans, so that I keep the noise level down. So as I slowly get through the show, I'll be more sweaty. Great. And he tells us what he's drinking and eating. Let's see, Chuck, private conversations, or not private, but conversations back and forth. Chuck is here from Baldwin, Missouri. He's, okay. Okay. Back and forth. Yeah, there's I think it was the last New York State slot machine casino gambling article, professorslots.com/NY, that talked about the Niagara casinos and the Ontario casinos. Not sure I left in the link to the OLG gaming control board for Ontario, the province of Canada, the Crown agency. Okay, Doug is here from St. Joseph, Missouri, drinking iced tea. Well, I'm going to have some tap water, okay? I feel like I need to have some tap water. And I didn't buy, I bought this bottle, but they're not a sponsor. That would be great. But I must have refilled it with tap water like 150 times. Dean is here. Hey, Dean. Dean is in Las Vegas, and he must be having a good time. Doug, thank you, Doug. He says, give me a thumbs up, give me a like for the video so we can gain more followers. That's excellent. I noticed somebody subscribed to this video. I set it up a week ago, and they subscribed sometime in the last week, which is great because we hadn't had the show yet even. Richard is here. Richard and Lisa. Hello, Lisa. From Western North Carolina, currently checked in at a hotel at Cherokee, North Carolina Harrah's, spending the weekend. Only spotted one hand pay on this floor Friday night. We'll talk about that in a moment. We talked about it a little bit last week, and I'll talk about it a little bit more today. Texas Tootsie is here. Her name's Jan. She's from, you might have guessed, Texas, but she plays in Louisiana. And thank you for mentioning that earlier time is fine with you. I appreciate that. There's themes on these casino reopenings, and because of the safety of wearing masks and such, a lot less people are smoking these days, and going to a casino where people smoked was hard for me because of my allergies. And every time somebody says, like Richard just did, it's so nice to not breathe smokers' smoke on the floor, I just I know. Oh, what a relief. They have such good ventilation in Las Vegas. Dean, maybe you could find out if you go to the casino. I'm not saying you have to, of course, but if you go to the casino, they have such good air circulation. What's the smoke like there? Because, I barely smelled anything. It barely bothered me when I've been there, but I did talk to some of the slot attendants in the cashier's cage, and they talk about how in the corners, along the wall where there's not a lot of air movement, then it gets really smoky in like the cashier's cage, which is tough on the employees. So maybe you can ask and see if they're doing a little better, because they just sit there in the mist, and the smoke, and cough a little. Right. Just a question. Catherine from Oregon is here. Yay. Chuck is, thank you for not talking about politics. Definitely. Yeah. This is your safe zone. Okay. What do they used to call that? Safe zone. But partly because, we are such slots enthusiasts, right? We are enthusiastic. You've gone the extra mile to be here for the live stream, and you want to know. So I'll stop talking in a moment and check the last of the chats, and we'll move forward. Yeah. Richard says map the floor, different dynamics of the slot machines due to half capacity, every other slot off, regular chain smokers not around, chain smokers, and very few high rollers padding the machines, mostly small bets. Hey, we will talk about why that is, what the response might be. That's why I mentioned last week, annual casino assessments. All right. That should be a regular thing. See if the local casinos, I went to a casino and it was just shabby. And I was like, ugh. and I didn't go back. And then like 3 years later, I drove by and I'm like, what is this? It's like they tore the building down and put up a whole new one. Why did I not know about this? So annually check, it doesn't have to be that much. It could be like a new owner. And how would you know necessarily? So that's what I mentioned last week. Assess your casinos annually. And if anything big happens, and there's a long list of things that could be that, I didn't make a list, but even if I had, I'm not sure I would have put global pandemic on it. So whatever is happening in your area, floods, renovations, shutdowns, annual casino assessments, the only people that wouldn't necessarily want to do that is those that only have one casino and they have little choice if they want to go. Dean switched to all caps about Las Vegas casinos are now open. Got a couple of thumbs ups on the noon is good. Dean says the larger the casino, the less you notice smoking. But I did, the corners are hard. I had a fluid dynamics course in graduate school that explained why, but I don't think we need to go over the Navier-Stokes equation, which is a wonderful equation. It has calculus in it and some vector functions. What's funny about this, and I promise it's funny, I like to talk about math too much, is I got a shirt from the Art Institute of Michigan when I was in graduate school, and it had this long equation that's just crazy looking for people who don't study that kind of math. And integrals and vector calculus and all that kind of tucked in there. And it's called the Navier-Stokes equation. And above the Navier-Stokes equation was a statement saying what part of, and then it shows the equation, and across the bottom it says, don't you understand? And that was something the people in my class thought that was funny, but nobody else did. Denise says also agrees about the non-smoking. Yes. I have Ohio voted a few years ago to not have smoking in at businesses, and that was part of the reason why I have a business, because I'm not sure how much of that I could take, and now I can go in and be comfortable and not bag my clothes and think about how close I am to having an asthma attack and do I really need adrenaline or can I get through it? Okay, so always nice to have a little personal conversation. Let's move it along. I'm still working on the balance between, how much I answer questions and how much I talk. And I'm trying to do like half and half. And we'll come back to you guys in chat in a moment, but let's support the podcast listeners and the people listening to the recording later. So that was great. Today's topic is based on the second of my 3 main articles on my website. The second topic is choosing slot machines. Last week's topic was the first article, assessing casinos for success. And I'm planning for the next week's topic to be my third article, identifying your gambling goals. Links to these 3 Every Slots Enthusiast Must Know articles are on my website homepage at professorslots.com. Did I see something? The one of the Greener Pastures, is it Chris, Wisconsin? I'm trying to look into selling shirts, and one of the things they don't have is anything with a collar. And I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be the best place. a slots enthusiast store set up online at professorslots.com/swag, SWAG, and it's all, I'm a slots enthusiast. The hard part was getting everything set up, but I have to decide whether or not I'm pleased with it. T-shirts are great. Hoodies are great. I don't tend to wear them except on the show. And I'd like to get something with a collar, polo shirt, or, a shirt. So we will see if they make the cut. You can find a direct link to choosing slot machines in the live chat, in the show notes at professorslots.com/episode 94, which is not there as I speak, but by the time the podcast listeners hear this, it will be up and running for the podcast listeners. And it'll also be in the description if you're watching this recording later. I will look into a dress shirt. I'm already wanting one myself. I'll see what I can do about that. It's interesting what's out there and what is and is not available. Okay, so you'll find my YouTube video on this article near the top of the web page. That'll be important in a moment, and I'll explain why shortly. Also, if you're a podcast listener, I spoke about this article on my Professor Slots podcast show way back in episode number 4. There, I went over the article. Here, I'm doing something different, something slightly different, which is I discuss what's not in it and, how you might apply it during a global pandemic. So that's the article on the website, on the video, on the podcast, episode number 4. But today I'm just going to cover things that we're talking about that apply to our situation now. These 3 articles are very important, and I share them a lot. But this is the only time I really say, what's your questions and how do I answer them, and talk about, consequences. So, right. So on my past live streams, my intent is not to present this topic for the first time, but rather review it for what wasn't discussed. In this article, it explains in general how odds are set within a slot machine. Also, choosing denomination and maximum credits based on bankroll amount. It's where I explain the basics of reading a slot machine's pay table. I go into it a little bit more in another article, but this is the basics. And also, I provide I call it my goodness ratio. It's a simple way to use pay tables to pick the best machines and avoid the worst. And there's been some questions about that, and I want to try to address them now. The first thing is there are 2 separate odds of winning. We're seeing casino operators using this at some of the Oklahoma casinos and not using it at other ones outside of in Oklahoma and elsewhere. These 2 odds make it a better experience. Using these 2 odds, and I'll explain how, makes it a better experience for slots enthusiasts instead of tribal casinos just taking their money. I have a fox that plays in the yard, and it just walked by. In fact, apparently it had babies, and I've got 5 of them sometimes, and it just walked by. I'm going to try to ignore that. If there's a deer, it's easier. Foxes are harder. Anyway, how easily am I distracted? The business practice we're seeing is that these casinos are giving slots enthusiasts a lot of wins, but the jackpots are much smaller than what they were before all the casinos closed. This reminds me of something else. I don't know how much I've done this, but I do connect things. And this reminds me of the Great Recession of 2008, where I was working at the time. The place I was working at the time decided to offer voluntary retirement packages followed by layoffs if needed, just like now, right? But the third thing they did after the voluntary layoffs, after voluntary retirement packages, after the layoffs, was the third thing they did was give everyone an unpaid day off. 5 of them, 5, 6, 7, something like that. I expected a lot of people to be upset by that, yet I never heard a peep out of anyone about it. Why? Because the furlough days were strategically placed before or after a major holiday. So those 3-day weekends we had been getting became 4-day weekends. And again, I never heard a single complaint about it. It looks like that's what's going on at reopened casinos that are doing well. They're increasing the first odds on if you win, but lowering the second odds on how much you win. The slots enthusiasts aren't complaining one bit. But those casinos who have tightened up the first odds of winning, and probably, but who knows, the second odds of winning, those slots players aren't happy because they aren't winning anything. I wish other casinos would pick up on this win-win combination of lots of wins, but small amounts. It's not what it used to be, but now I just have to figure out what the advantage is, so we can take advantage of that. But it certainly does mean that some casinos are going to do well with their reopenings, and because people will be happy, but they're also making money, lots of money, because the wins aren't that big. And that's win-win if I ever heard it. So one of last week's casino assessment suggestions was to walk the casino floor and observe. Is anyone winning? Are there any sounds of anyone winning? Because, that's a clue to leave, right? Do you see how understanding the 2 odds of winning applies to what you're seeing at your casino? With choosing slot machines, the next section in it is about matching bankrolls to denomination and credits. You can read or watch it yourself, but I will mention that some slots enthusiasts in emails and the slots communities will just about apologize for not playing high limit or maximum credits. Don't apologize. That's wisdom right there. Next is a section on reading a slot machine's pay table. Again, let's talk about more than what's written there. A question I often get to visually explain what I mean about my goodness ratio method, which is a way to use the pay table to avoid the worst slot machines. They want that some sort of visual explanation, more than you can do in just an article. So I did that. I did that in the YouTube video, and I'll give you a link in just a minute. That's why we want to make sure we look at the YouTube video for this article, because it's important to see the visual example. I mean, numbers are fine. Paragraph written in a paragraph is fine, but just having a sort of ping, ping, ping sort of visual is helpful for a lot of people. So rather than give you the complicated link that YouTube offers, I have a shortcut. So in my video, my YouTube video, Choosing Candidate Slot Machines, at 7 minutes and 50 seconds, there's a visual explanation of my goodness ratio, of examples used. And in the article, there's a picture of more than one slot machine side by side. And I use that to explain it in the article, but I also use it to make this visual presentation in the YouTube video at 7 minutes. And is there something wrong with that link? I think there is something wrong with that link. YouTube is not letting me put the link in. When I put it in, it puts a space in between Professor Slots and .com. I'm so sorry. I pasted as one thing and it shows up as another. That is new. YouTube is always changing, and that's something that must have happened since Saturday, a week ago. My apologies. It'll be in the description after the show. So what does the goodness ratio really do? It's a little unusual in that it has absolutely nothing to do with the first odds of winning. People say, "Oh, use your goodness ratio to find a machine that provides jackpots." I'm like, no. And let me explain. So it does not and can't identify a winning slot machine in the sense of being more or less likely of hitting jackpots. What it does do is identify whether any jackpot won will matter. All right? It's the two odds of winning again. If you win, how much you win. It doesn't help with the if you win, it helps with the how much you win. Okay? So let me explain what that means. It means slot machines with a high goodness ratio have bigger jackpots if a jackpot is won. You'll have to use one of my other methods based on casino business practices to find a jackpot, find a jackpot slot machine that is more likely to provide jackpots. But just like we're seeing from some casinos now, will those jackpots be big enough to matter? One of the examples of this, recently mentioned it within one of our private Facebook slots communities, all names removed, was a slots enthusiast reporting back on winning $1,400 and $1,500 jackpots in a high limit room when playing a $50 denomination slot machine. As other slots enthusiasts commented, and I'm so proud of them for doing so, they wondered if he or she was even coming out ahead, or even close, actually. My point here is my goodness ratio helps find slot machines to avoid so that if you win bigger jackpots. Put another way, a very different way, maybe you're winning enough at a casino already and you just need to spend less time losing. Remember, income minus expenses is profit, but only if it's a positive number. Otherwise, if it's negative, it's losses, not profits. Finally, I'm often asked, what's a good goodness ratio? I avoid suggesting one in the article because it's relative to your casino. It's usually either very high or very low. So pick a high one. Pick a high ratio with your desired denomination and credits combination, which matches your bankroll. Now, one thing we have to talk about is what if it's a progressive jackpot? And I might come back to that. I assume there's a way to still use it, but I can see. Let's get back to goodness ratio cutoff. I can see that picking a goodness ratio cutoff for the nation is wanted. So let's call it halfway. Let's call it halfway between the two goodness ratios from the side-by-side slot machines in the article picture and in the video at professorslots.com/goodness. A high goodness ratio is the machine on the left, a 2-credit quarter denomination machine with a top jackpot of 15,000 credits. That's $3,750. And it's a 2-credit machine, right? I mentioned that, with a goodness ratio of $7,500. All this is shown very clearly in the video at professorslots.com/goodness. So the one on the right should be avoided. That is also a quarter machine, but instead of 2 credits, it's a 3-credit machine. And instead of a top jackpot of 15,000 credits, it's a top jackpot of 6,000 credits. Its goodness ratio is 2,000, right? So the one on the left has a goodness ratio of $7,500, not dollars. And the one on the right has a goodness ratio of 2,000. So you can see that they're wildly different, right? And you want a higher number. So play the one with 7,500 as a goodness ratio. But if you want to know what a cutoff would be, let's go with halfway between the two. All right. If you need to avoid slot machines, my suggestion would be avoid slot machines that has a goodness ratio of, halfway between 2,000 and 8,000 would be 5,000 or less. So avoid machines with a goodness ratio of 5,000 or less. Now, if every machine in your casino, and this is the part that I worry about, every machine in the casino has at best 5,000, but several have 500, then we sort of have to redo that calculation, and I didn't want to assume. So, if it's extremely low compared to the others, avoid that, and your profit will increase because you're losing less. You're not spending, you're not you're not spending money on machines where the jackpot is so small that you're still losing money. And this is all statistics, so it won't happen every time, but it will change your profit for the year, improve your profit for the year, improve your gambling performance for the year. For those of you who wanted a number, I'm going to say happy now. So I'm going to switch back over to the live chat and maybe come back and talk a little bit about progressives, depending on how many questions we have. Yeah, I will have to do something about the dress shirt and make a note of that. There are some kind of less easy to find. I'm using a service called Teespring, Tee Spring, all one word. And some things they have and some things they don't. And some of the things that they have are not as obvious, and I have to dig them out. Like they have keychains, but apparently I have to buy nearly $1,000 worth of them because I have to they need to do a run, probably in China, and produce at least 100 of them, quantity of 100 of them. And I'm like, well, maybe I'll wait on that one a little bit. But I'll see if they might have buried in there somewhere not easy to find dress shirts, because that's what I prefer as well. So yeah, Paula says some of the links are a little bit off. I don't have a space in where I copy that link so I can easily drop it into the chat. But when I press enter, it inserted it. I don't know if that's autocorrect. I don't know, quite what's happening there. But it didn't ever happen before. So slowly YouTube makes some changes. A lot of them don't really concern us about whether this is child's content or not, and all the things that go, what is that, COPA? But none of that has to do with us. This is, every week you get a little surprise, including some weeks where there is no change, and that's your surprise. So t-shirts, dress shirts and polos. I will see what I can do about that. One of the things that, actually Paula, yep, I'll talk about progressives in just a second. Paula had, confided in me, family friend that she is, that perhaps the design of these shirts could be a little bit better. And I'm going to see if I can maybe put the logo on the front and I'm a slot enthusiast across the back instead of on both, and see if that can work. I have some problems with the graphic that I'm using where I have to make it transparent, and it's kind of not happening. So I got technical difficulties with Photoshop. But so you may over time see some changes. Now I would love to make it all like this, embroidery, but that's definitely not an option on that site. And the price will go up, and it may go up so much that it might be, difficult, for anybody to decide to spend that. But I do think they look nicer. So I will, keep working on that end. I finished, it's called mastering, or rather remastering. I barely mastered it for the first time. I submitted the audiobook a month ago. And this time I removed 2,000 breaths, right? If I breathe every 5 seconds, no, it would be about every 15 seconds I have a breath, and it's 8-hour long book. How many, it's roughly 1,500 breaths, and they all had to be zapped out. And so it took me a month to do that. And then I also had to, anytime my chair squeaked or something, I had to, much better at editing now. But I submitted it last night, and they have said it'll be a month before it's up and ready. It could be less than that. And last time I responded pretty quickly. We'll see. They currently say it should be about a month, maybe a little bit less. And right. And so that'll be available. I'll let you know when. I think what's happening, Paula, is that when I see it here, Professor Slots is a name of my website, but it's also the name of my handle, right? And so one of the things I did, this is so technical, I just love talking about this stuff. I'm such a geek. I changed my YouTube channel, not the address, but I made it a branded site. And it's also has, before it was John Friedel - Professor Slots, and now it's just Professor Slots. And that means that when Professor Slots posts a link that starts with Professor Slots, it drops in a dash or drops in a space on my end to highlight something. Anyway, I will see what I can do about that. I'm not sure. All these technical difficulties. Right. So, yes. Every service is Texas Tootsie Jan says pretty sure you can only do embroidery on dress and polos, so front only. It depends on the service. And some services do embroidery, some do not. Some do terrible staining, which is kind of blurry, and others do really nice. And I should be getting the first samples from Teespring shortly, another 4 or 5 days. And I'll see what the quality is because all I have is pictures right now. And so we'll see how those actually look. I won't explain all the ins and outs, but there might be another service where I have shirts available and I need to sort of find a way to make it all kind of convenient and kind of get it on my website as well. Teespring is the only thing that'll work on YouTube once I get to 1,000 subscribers. So I'm ready for that, but it may not be the best one. It's just the only solution for YouTube. But on my website, I can do better, and I will do better. I'll let you know. Thank you. I appreciate the feedback from both of you, all of you. Okay, so progressives. The whole idea about the goodness ratio is that you take the top jackpot on the maximum credits, and if that is in credits, it isn't always, but if it's in credits, then you divide it by the number of credits. All right. So you have 3 columns. The third one is the numbers, the jackpot amount in credits that you would get for the maximum credits. Let's say it's the third column, and that's the 3 credit option. And the top jackpot is, 6,000, and it's 6,000 credits. And so you divide that, say it's a 3 credit machine, you divide it by 3, and you get 2,000. Your goodness ratio is 2,000. Well, what if it is a progressive slot machine? What if it is, a rolling number? Well, what you need to do then is drop down to maybe the second highest jackpot. Now, that won't work on progressive slot machines, which aren't identified as progressive. Progressive slot machines include those with a major and minor jackpot that are also rolling. The rolling part is the progressive part because it's progressing. So you need to find the highest jackpot that is not a progressive, that is not a major, is not a minor, and you need to find out what that amount is and how many steps down from the top. All right. So progressive jackpot amount is the top jackpot. The major and the minor may not be the top. The major should be a top jackpot, might not necessarily be. And the next one below that, the minor, may be as well. So you need to find the highest jackpot that is not a progressive. Okay, let's say it's the second one. Progressive for the first one, that's rolling. And then the second one is not progressive, and it's a constant. All right, so you take that number and you divide it by the number of that credit amount, and you divide it by the number of credits that took to get that. But when you go to the next slot machine over, and it's not progressive, you have to compare it to the second from the top jackpot as well. And that's how it works on progressive slot machines, because you don't want to say, well, the bigger the progressive jackpot, the goodness ratio is going up and up and up. It doesn't work that way. You need a constant jackpot, and you need to use the same second from the top, third from the top, jackpot to compare to other slot machines. So that gets, it's master's level on using the goodness ratio, but there's a lot of progressive slot machines out there. You just sort of have to take away the progressive part and do your comparison then. Yeah. So let's see. Now, again, master's level, right? Master casino slots, win your way to success. The master part here is what if the jackpots are shown in dollar amounts? What then? Well, that means you still have to divide it by the number of credits to win that top jackpot. You still do that, but you also need to divide it by the denomination amount. So if it's a quarter, you need to divide it. If it's one, the number doesn't change, and that's easier. But if it's a $5, then you need to divide it by 5. So if the jackpot is in dollar amounts, you have to divide it by the denomination. That way you can compare that slot machine to any other denomination slot machine. That kind of covers that. If you have questions, I guess we're talking about shirts today, and tea and coffee and flavored tea and who was it that had the ice water? Mine's very similar, only it's not ice. Right. So Chip says the fellow Chip he likes John's. We went over a lot of names once, and he likes John's Jovial Jackpotters with a sort of a shortcut JJJ, and he asked me, "Hey, can I use that?" And I'm like, "Fine." Anybody asks him, he's going to say, I'm talking about Professor Slots, just like with the current stuff at professorslots.com/swag, where it says, I'm a slots enthusiast, small in the front, big in the back, and that may change in the front. If I can get some technical difficulties figured out. If you and he will need to, when asked, please mention my name. Word of mouth is better anyway. But I'll see if I can't get a logo in there someplace tastefully, because that would be it. Yeah. So there is kind of like this one here. It says, I'm a slots, and across the bottom, enthusiast, exclamation point. And it's really hard for me to kind of show things on the screen here without advance notice. And then it's big across the back. I'm a slots enthusiast. And I should have the first ones in before our next meeting, next show a week from today. So I'll, if they're good enough quality, they should be. I believe they are. YouTube picked them as the only thing that they offer, so it's got to be good. But I will likely wear one this coming Saturday, even though it won't have a collar. And you'll see. Let's see. But need to do a little better. One of the things is I finished the audiobook, and in the last month, I put so many hours into that because I want to, master it well, get all the little clicks out and all the little breaths out. And that just took a lot of detail work because it's 8 hours long. And so, it took me 30 hours, 40 hours to find that time. Now that is done, unless they send it back and I need to touch it up, that should be over. And I can only do one big project in addition to everything else at any one time. So now I'm like, okay, why don't I do 3 quick things in the next couple of weeks? Shirts, this, that, the other thing. And then I have an idea for some other stuff to sell, just because I think people want it. And I'll mention that when it's ready. Then I need to move on to the next big thing. And I'm pretty sure it's putting together everything I need for about a 6-month effort to get the first beta version of the online course ready for our beta testers, of which I have a list. And then they run through it and give me feedback as the only charge for that. Yeah, Richard says, audiobook? Great idea. Yeah. I recorded it in November and have been working on it, submitted it a month ago. Like I said, 8 hours. The recording itself was like 30 hours, and I had to take out all the misspeakings and whatnot. And then I submitted it, and they came back and said, you got to reduce your noise floor and some other technical stuff. And so I took the last month, did it, submitted it last night, and they said it would be a month. It might be less. Should be a month. And I don't know how much it's going to cost. They say they set the price. Don't join Audible. Please don't join Audible now in anticipation of the audiobook. Don't do it, please. Unless you want to, but don't, because I could send you a link and when the book comes out where you can join at no cost to you. And I get $75 for that if you stay for 3 months or something. So at no cost to you, I can get you can help me out with maybe making maybe buying those keychains that for slightly under $1,000. So hold off if you are not a member of Audible, and I'll send you a link when my book becomes available. And as your first purchase using my affiliate link, it won't cost you anything more, but I might get something more. And so audiobook on its way, might be another month. Okay. Again, I got bills, and the more income I get, the more I can afford the extra stuff for you guys. So it's all going right back in, unless until at some point I make enough to make an extra student loan payment, which is kind of like my long-term goal. Right. So, so Denise is saying goodbye, and I think we pretty much, yeah. Chip talked about having his shirt, and if you see that there's a combination of factors in order to get you this stuff, which is I need to be able to sell it online. I need to be able to maybe have a plugin for the website, or maybe they have a shop that, doesn't rip you off, that has good quality instead of like terrible quality. There's definitely some characters out there where that'll happen. So I'm looking for a quality. I have a matrix of all the things I'm looking for. And this is my third site that I've gone to, and it's got some advantage. It's got some advantages. The audiobook, could have wished to have had it done last year. People are saying that would be great. And I'm like, yeah, I get there. Having an online course would be great too. Website, podcast, YouTube show. One of the things that I hope to be able to do now is the last month, I just worked on the audiobook. It's just so much detail that I didn't do my Monday. Was it Tuesday, Thursday, Friday? No, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, recorded videos. Apologies for that. But, Scott, for you, I'm going to do the videos. I think you mentioned 6 or 7 weeks ago that this intent is to build a community, and what I think that you're looking for is a bang up 5 minutes on the topic, and so look for that. I'll talk to you later, Scott. Right. I think I've covered all the stuff that I wanted to cover about review of this document. Next week, we'll be talking about identifying your gambling goals. The article's already there for you. And Steve, I had to approve your link. I don't know why that keeps on happening. But I wanted to make sure that remember that those of you on the live stream will be switching to starting at noon Eastern Time next Saturday. Also, as I've also mentioned, join your local slots community on Facebook to get the latest on casino reopenings in your area. Share your casino trip reports and see what your local slots enthusiasts are sharing. Every state has a private Facebook group slots community I've set up. Find yours at professorslots.com/FB. Have fun, be safe, make good choices. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Remember to visit professorslots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. This is the second segment of the show on slot machine casino gambling. Here, I provide a brief overview of the current state of gambling in a U.S. state, territory, or the federal district, emphasizing, by far, anything of interest to slot machine casino gamblers. Up next is North Dakota slot machine casino gambling in 2020. Here goes. North Dakota slot machine casino gambling consists of 6 American Indian tribal casinos. Otherwise, North Dakota prohibits slot machines at racetracks and other OTB facilities, as well as at 800-plus charitable gaming sites. Minimum and maximum theoretical payout limits have been set, with different minimum limits for video poker and video blackjack versus physical reel and video slot machines. Return statistics are not publicly available. The minimum legal gambling age in North Dakota depends upon the gambling activity. For land-based casinos and poker rooms, it's 21. For bingo, the lottery, and pari-mutuel wagering, it's 18. However, for bingo, it's also available for those who are younger than 18 if they are accompanied by an adult. Beginning in 1992, 5 negotiated tribal state gaming compacts were approved, allowing Class III Vegas-style gaming machines at tribal casinos in North Dakota. At these tribal casinos, the maximum bet is $25. Next up is a usually short statement about slot machine private ownership, which I have included in case you live in this U.S. state and are considering owning a slot machine. Here it is. In North Dakota, it is legal to own a slot machine privately if it is 25 years old or older. The North Dakota Gaming Commission is a licensing and gaming division of the Attorney General's office. This gaming control board is responsible for enforcing gaming regulations on charitable gaming, tribal gaming, and the North Dakota Lottery. With regards to slot machines, the Commission conducts random inspections at tribal casinos to ensure game integrity and compliance with wager limits and prize payout ratios. In this section, I discuss North Dakota gaming establishments. There are 6 American Indian tribal casinos in North Dakota. The largest casino in North Dakota is Dakota Magic Casino Hotel with 1,001 gaming machines. The second largest casino is Sky Dancer Hotel Casino and Resort with 820 gaming machines. There are no commercial casinos in North Dakota with slot machines. However, 2 racetracks and a series of off-track betting, OTB, sites without slot machines exist. Further, another 800 sites statewide offer charitable gaming, but also none offer slot machines. There are 6 tribal casinos in North Dakota. As usual, when there are too many casinos to mention here, a complete list and map is on my website for this state at professorslots.com/ND. As an alternative to enjoying slot machine casino gambling, consider exploring casino options in a nearby state. Bordering North Dakota is, to the north, the Canadian provinces of Saskatchewan and Manitoba. To the east, Minnesota. To the south, South Dakota. And to the west, Montana. To visit any of my articles on these U.S. states, simply visit professorslots.com followed by its 2-letter postal designation. For example, my Minnesota slots article is available at professorslots.com/MN. Are you interested in sharing and learning with other slots enthusiasts in North Dakota? If so, join our North Dakota slots community on Facebook at professorslots.com/FBND. All you'll need is a Facebook profile to join this private Facebook group freely. There, you'll be able to privately share your slots experiences as well as chat with players about slots gambling in or near North Dakota. Again, use this convenient link I've created to go directly to our group on Facebook, professorslots.com/FBND. Join us. Each gaming compact states the theoretical payout for slot machines is between 80% and 100%. Games of skill machines, such as video poker and video blackjack, have theoretical payouts between 83% and 100%. Monthly gaming statistics are not publicly available as the gaming compacts do not require it. In summary, North Dakota slot machine casino gambling consists of 6 tribal casinos. The maximum bet is $25. Electronic gaming machines are not available at North Dakota's other gambling establishments, including pari-mutuel wagering racetracks, OTB facilities, or 800-plus locations with charitable gaming. Slot machines have a minimum theoretical payout of 83%, while video games of skill have been set to 83%. Both types of gaming machines have a maximum theoretical payout of 100%. Return statistics are not publicly available. Over the last year, there has been no significant change to the slots gaming industry in North Dakota. Remember to visit ProfessorSlots.com/subscribe to get my free report revealing the top 7 online resources for improving your gambling performance, including the one I've used as a top-tier slot machine casino gambler. Part 1 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is a live-streamed Q&A session on YouTube. My weekly Q&A session on YouTube has moved, starting next time, to Saturdays from noon until 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Bring whatever slots questions you have, and I'll do my best to answer them. An easy-to-remember link to my YouTube channel is ProfessorSlots.com/live. Feel free to stop by any time during my hour-long Q&A. To suggest a topic or ask a question, which might end up as a blog article or on a podcast episode, email it to John at Professor Slots, where John is spelled Jon. Part 2 of the next episode of the Professor Slots podcast is another brief overview of the current state of gambling in a U.S. state, territory, or the federal district. Next time, I'll be talking to you about the great U.S. territory of Northern Mariana Islands. That's the end of another great episode of the Professor Slots podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Show notes for this episode are on my website at ProfessorSlots.com/episode 94. I plan to have the next episode come out very soon for you, where I'll have more amazing content for the show. Until the next episode, have fun, be safe, and make good choices. Bye.